Vodafone Idea, the government's challenge was to determine how much fiscal risk it was willing to absorb. This was why the telecom package was delayed by a week. The Department of Telecommunications or DoT and the Ministry of Finance or MOF argued over this point. The decision went down to the wire pretty late on Tuesday night before the cabinet met on Wednesday morning to approve the package of the 9 reforms for the sector, 5 procedural changes plus 4 relief measures. As the package announced by Telecom Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw shows, the government has taken little fiscal risk except for foregoing additional spectrum usage charge of 0.5% for companies when they jointly use a particular band of airwave. It is important to get this perspective, but if the government had done so, there would have been political pushback against the hefty rise in subscription rates Vodafone Idea must now introduce. India badly needs to deepen digital connectivity, but that in turn needs the 3 private sector companies to stay in good health. A partly nationalized Vodafone Idea raising telecom rates would have been too hot to handle, although state-owned BSNL and MTNL are already likely to do so. Instead, Vodafone Idea has been effectively told that the government support is contingent on the telecom service provider bringing in fresh capital. In a huge relaxation, foreign investors can invest 100% in the sector under the automatic route. To make the deal work, the government had dropped the threat of retrospective tax claim of Rs 22,100 crore on the parent company in August this year. The question is, why the parent should invest on the lenders offer fresh capital. The government has offered a moratorium of up to 4 years in annual payments of dues arising out of the judgment of the Supreme Court on the telecom service providers on the adjusted gross revenue or AGR they need to share with the government. DoT estimates the liability of Rs 58,000 crore for the company over a 10-year period, while the latter puts it at Rs 29,300 crore. The government has also offered the same sort of concession for spectrum payments in future auctions, a 4-year moratorium for payments on spectrum companies win in auctions such as those for 5G coming up in 2022. But again, for both, the rider is that the government will protect the net present value or NPV of its dues, which means the government will charge interest on companies that opt for the deferment. The rate is currently about 8% annually. The implication is the latter payment will be steep, but the calculus is that Vodafone Idea would have repaired itself to be able to make them by then. In other words, the Consolidated Fund of India will not suffer any financial loss now or in the future. Meanwhile, there is space for the company to rearrange its books to continue operations and expand. One of those offers, again, prospectively, is a crucial reduction in the scope of the AGR. The company, like the other two, can hive off its non-telecom services into separate companies and insulate those revenues from the sharing formula. DoT has also agreed there will be no spectrum usage charges for future airwaves any telecom company buys in addition to what they will pay as auction fees. This is something that the MOF, for instance, had suggested to the DoT for some years. So the package looks something like this. Vodafone Idea does not have to pay its current dues to the government. It can participate in auctions and add spectrum to fill gaps in telecom circles where it operates. It has been offered long-term certainty about its future cash flows in terms of what it will share with the government. Some of those lines have been expanded, such as the holding period for spectrum, which will now be 30 years instead of 20.